because that highway is in a bad shape. We need to rebuild the entire highway. I pointed out that the contract for $190 million US. A few weeks ago, Jill and daughters were here, Minister of Finance, to sign that contract. It's $190 million from Linden to Mabura. And I pointed out that we are now designing a new bridge to cross the river here now, and that will be tendered way before the end of the year. That alone is over $300 million US that we'll be spending on from Susdike to Mabura, including the bridge. I asked them, where were your plans for the roads? Because we managed to get all of these loans approved and grants approved since we've gotten into office. Then I pointed out that we've set aside $550 million to do community roads across the region in Kwakwani and here in Linden. That is the biggest allocation to the region ever in our history for roads. But when I came here, people were very concerned about their roads. So when we went back, we increased it now from $550 to $1 billion now to be spent on community roads, all the small roads in many of these areas. So they were talking about roads in the region. You've had 5 years, you didn't do anything much, but now you're very critical when we've laid out our program. And they're very much aware of this because they're in the parliament too when we present our plans here. But come to lie to people out here and snipe all of the time. So, also, when I came here the last time, I mentioned to people that we were going to create the jobs. But before I do that, for the people in the riverine areas, the Demerara and Berbice rivers, I promise that we will do an assessment village by village. Many of them have issues with the schools and the quality of health care and everything else there. So I sent a team of ministers, and the team of ministers visited 12 villages in the Berbice and Demerara rivers. Now I have the report to work on those communities so that the riverine communities are not neglected. This is important. We have a plan now to upgrade the Linden Hospital in a major way so that most of the services you can get in the city, you'll be getting right here in the region. And we spoke a bit about that too. So, on the job side, I pointed out that what let me go to the gold scholarship first, or maybe the jobs. Let me do this. So when we go across Guyana, now we've had to try to get our economic policy going swiftly since we got into office. In the period pre-election, pre-COVID, Guyana lost about 35,000 jobs. And why did this happen? This was before COVID. This happened because of government policies. And let me explain why so you can understand what I'm saying and then you can check it for yourselves. The sugar industry, 7,000 people were laid off. Then the government put a value-added tax on machinery and equipment. So immediately, if you're buying machinery and equipment to invest in agriculture, in mining, in forestry, you have to pay 14% VAT on it. If you're buying, for example, a piece of equipment that costs $25 million, that runs, the taxes alone run into millions of dollars. You can't want jobs and tax the means through which people create jobs. So immediately, we saw a dip in investments in these sectors. In the mining sector, they changed the incentive regime. Even the final tax was changed. They put it from a 2% final tax to 28%. We had to fight to get it down back. And now, since we got into office, we reversed that. So mining dipped. The forestry sector, in 2019, we were producing half of what we were producing in 2014. In Region 10, you know what happened. Many of the people who were employed in the forestry area, the market practically collapsed. And so 35,000 jobs were lost. And then when the COVID hit, another 35,000, 40,000 jobs were lost because the country was shut down. So we came into government with a deficit, leaving out people who were looking for jobs, but about 80,000, 75,000, 80,000 people who had lost jobs. So we said in our manifesto we want to create about 50,000 new jobs. But clearly now the task is even bigger. We have to do much, much more if we want to get our people employed. And so that was a big problem. And then we recognized if we kept the country shut down, like so many other countries were doing, like Trinidad and Tobago, nothing worked, then that would even cause greater hardships. So the first cabinet meeting that we've had in the new government, we said we are reopening our airport. And we had a big disagreement in the cabinet. They said this may not be the right strategy, but we decided to open up the economy. And today, we were vindicated because what happened is that the countries that are shut down, their rate is even higher than ours, but they had a major economic fallout. In our case, we've been able to keep the economy going, regenerate some of the jobs because of that balanced look, and at the same time, try to build a capability to address the pandemic and keep our people safe. So 40 tests we were doing per day when we got in. Now we have a capability of doing 5,000 a day. And we have an ICU, hospital, and a whole range of other things. I know many people didn't want to take the vaccine for all sorts of reasons. And that is why today we remove all the restrictions back again. But we saw the developed world hung on to the vaccine. It was like an apartheid system that poor countries in Africa, the Caribbean or so, even we had the money to buy it, they would not give us the supplies. We had to hunt around the world. And luckily, we managed to get about 80% of our adult population vaccinated. So that helped in a way. And today, our numbers are lower. If you look on a per capita basis, our death rate is lower, maybe less than half of the United States of America. They had all the best medical care in the world. And we still kept our economy open. That was the dual strategy that we approached. And because of that, we managed to get people to go back to work, like all the waitresses and people in the tourism sector and the taxi drivers who had lost their job. They started working back. But that's not enough. Now we're coming out of the pandemic with this big task ahead. We can't aim for 50,000 jobs that we campaign on. We said if we win, we will do 50,000. We have to do much, much more to generate jobs. But it's becoming harder because in all parts of the country. Because what has happened is Region 4 and 3, a lot of investment flow in those areas. So we are having job shortages in some of these areas. But in Berbice, in Essequibo, in Linden, Region 10, in Region 5, in the hinterland areas, we're not getting as many investments because the investors don't want to come out so far. So we now have to find other activities to find jobs for people. until we can train them or we can get investments coming into their community or they can travel to work in Region 4. And so we decided we were going to launch this initiative. So it's going to be about 8 to 10,000 of our people hired through this initiative. They will get $40,000 a month for 10 days work. So they will stagger. And the 10 days, it's not free money. You have to work. So, but you don't have to go in the fields, etc. Because we need a lot of people to assist in the hospitals. We need some to assist in the libraries, in the schools. We can place people in different agencies so they're doing productive work. Whilst we're hoping also that they would study. And this brings me to another point that I've been talking about. So you know, in our manifesto before the elections, we say if we win the elections, we will make the University of Guyana education free in the 5 years, within the 5 years, and we plan to do that. But we also said we want to do 20,000 scholarships, online scholarships. So as soon as we got into office, we brought back Professor Opede, who was at the University of the West Indies, and he's now in charge of that project for us. And we have given out 6,000 scholarships so far. This year will be another 5,000. The last time I was here, I met with a lot of young people in this region who were part of that program, the scholarship program. But I've also been saying we're not satisfied in doing 20,000 for the country in the 5 years that we promised. If we can find 500 people, 5,000 people in this region who want to eventually study, the government will pay for their scholarships. So as many people as we can find, because we want our people to upgrade their skills. Now many of them may not be able to go to a tertiary level program, that is a university program or a technical program. So that is why we recently launched a remedial course. So if you didn't finish CXC or you didn't have enough of the qualified, you weren't qualified to move on to one of the tertiary level programs, then in 3 to 6 months you can be prepared and you'll gain acceptance into one of those online programs. So I hope that all of you who are now going to work on this program, you see this as a stepping stone to something bigger. Not this is the end in itself. This is not the end in itself. That is where I want to be for the rest of my life, doing a part-time job. That you use this as a stepping stone, that you make sure that you continue to study or seek another employment that pays you more. That is what we're hoping. This is just to ensure that people have some income at this point in time. This is how I want you to see the program, and I want all the people in Region 10, women, a lot of young people here, I want you to also make full use of the online scholarship programs that we have launched. Now that is what I would like to talk about. Mr. Norton and the others talk about education, but what specifically, how did you offer the people in Region 10 an opportunity to do tertiary education? How did you do so? Now, no plan then and now, but you talk about discrimination. Now, every time, so let me go back to some of the other things that we promised. Because when I was in Essequibo Coast, I said to people that there were lots of promises we made before the elections. We promised to restore the children's grant. Now, there was a $10,000 grant that every school child had. It cost us, the government, $1.67 billion because we had 167,000 kids in school. APNU claimed they couldn't afford to keep that, so they took it away. But my argument that the food bill in government increased by over $1.6 billion in the 5 years. Couldn't find the money to give the school grant, but the government food bill alone, that is, the government was eating, increased by over $1.6 billion. So it was just a matter of priority. Priority. And you can check this. Don't believe me. Go to the estimates, check dietary in the budget in 2014, and check what dietary was, the sum of money allocated in 2020, and you can then see the growth. You check it for yourselves. So you don't have to believe me. But that was where the priority was. So we said we will reintroduce it, and we'll ensure that every school child within the 5 years, by the end of the 5 years, they get $50,000 per year, every school child. This year it has gone from 0 to already $25,000 per child, and that will be distributed shortly. And then we have more than increased the school uniform grant was $2,000, it's now $5,000 since we got into office. So we intend to make sure that our kids, they get the help. We promise also to double old age pension in the 5 years. We have increased it in the first 2 years by 40%. So that promise is there. We promise to restore the joint services bonus. APNU took away the 1 month tax-free bonus that the joint services, our police, soldiers, firemen, and the others were getting, claiming it was a political bribe. I don't know if you gave the soldiers more money. In any case, they got the majority of the votes there and still claim it was a political bribe. But we restored it so that those who are working in our joint services, they can enjoy it. We reversed all the taxes on water and electricity, on food items, a whole range of stuff since we got into office, because these were pre-election promises we made. We believe in keeping our promises. And when we said we want to work to change our whole country, we believe it. Not now, but in the past. But a lot of times you have to understand, that is why I said the history of the country, particularly the economic history of the country, so that you will know what the limitations were to implementing many of our programs, because it was a financial limitation. Now that the oil and gas industry is coming, so you hear lots of things. You hear that the PPP is giving Norton and the others, the PPP is giving its supporters oil and gas money everywhere else. Region 10 is neglected. Well, up to 3 weeks ago, we had not transferred a single cent from the oil and gas natural resources fund to the treasury. It meant we had not used a cent of the oil and gas money since we got into office. Up to 3 weeks ago. Only 3 weeks ago, the first transfer was made to the treasury to be spent now on financing some initiatives. And that's $200 million. $200 million. That's less, that's nearly around the same price as the road from Linden to Mabura. That's 190 million US. 200 million was transferred. That's all so far being transferred. Nothing else has been utilized. But if you listen to them, you would believe that, oh, PPP is giving people in Berbice because they support the PPP or are secure all of this money. It's nonsense. Secondly, they claim that you can, when they were in office, now they take ownership of the industry. But I recall Mr. Vulcan in front of the Marriott they were saying that the Marriott was a corrupt building built by the PPP and they will convert it into a hospital in 2015. But I didn't see no conversion into hospital. In fact, I always saw a lot of ministers enjoying themselves at the Marriott. It's one of the most profitable Marriotts in the world. It's owned fully by the government. But outside of that building in 2015, he was protesting. And he said, PPP was saying that they found oil and gas just before the elections, it was an election gimmick. It wasn't an election gimmick. We actually had found oil and gas, as the country now knows. They signed a lopsided agreement in 2016 that now we have to live with. So, where was this move now to help people? Suddenly, they said, because it sounds popular, we should give every Guyanese $4,000 to $5,000 US per year. It sounds good, free money. But what does that mean? If you look at the size of our population, which is close to a million people, maybe 800,000 to a million, depending on what the counts, that's over $4 billion, somewhere in the range to $3 to $4 billion, maybe up to $5 billion if it's a million. $5 billion US, guess how much we're collecting from the oil and gas sector up to now? We've collected in the last 2 years. $350 million US per year, but they want us to distribute 10 times more than what we collect. Now, it sounds good because people think it's free money. Oh, we get this free money. It's impossible. It's politicians talking nonsense to fool people again. You have to do your own maths. I know anybody who says that you doesn't have to need work, that you're so rich you don't have to work hard anymore, point them to the US. Their per capita GDP is $72,000 US. Ours is $9,000. And they work 3 jobs over there. They work 3 jobs. So don't listen to people who tell you there's free money. We have to utilize oil and gas money. We have to save some for the future. We have to use some on education, on healthcare. That is why I don't want to lay out the healthcare plan for the country, but it's a massive one. I just mentioned about upgrading the hospital here, but we have a massive program about putting in world-class infrastructure that will change our country and stimulate the non-oil sector. So in the long run, we can have jobs in those areas. The only way we can really have a bright future is if we plan for it, and not through short-term policies, but long-term policies. And that is what we have done in the PDP, progressively. Every time we've been in office, you see the clear direction. We know where we want to go, and the policies are all headed in that direction. So I relish, I know they're going to snipe again when I go back. The regional chairman, when I left the last time, said, oh, we don't want part-time jobs in Linden, we want full-time jobs. Well, you had 5 years to put the full-time jobs in place. In fact, the experience was the call center that I've built since I was president, and I was employing 88 persons here. 3 weeks after the APNU got into office, it was shut down. 88 persons lost their jobs. Now we have a new call center. They had 150 persons, I gather, and they'll probably hire another 150 soon. That is what you did for jobs. You tell me how many full-time jobs you provided. But he doesn't want part-time jobs, 1,000 part-time jobs. He wants full-time jobs, that they should keep those jobs. Well, he has a job already. He's doing extremely well. You tell that to other people who don't have an income that they don't want a part-time job. But this is what we have to contend with, and I know they're going to be lying again about what we say here, because today they came and they set a meeting just next door to ours this afternoon. I have another meeting, but this is why we have a free country, and all I ask is that we debate on a factual basis, because for them everything is about race. This country, if it gets swallowed up in that argument, it would destroy us, where everything is seen only through the spectrum of how we look or which party we belong to. This is important, working for the country, because we need all of our people now. In fact, we may have in the future to import laborers to come here and work here. Many of them already want to come because they see that future that is coming. So here in 10, I want you to make sure that you prepare. Use this as a stepping stone. There are lots of other initiatives on job creation, co-investing in facilities up here that we will work on. And progressively, I'd welcome a chance to keep you abreast from time to time about this that's going on, these initiatives, and to get you involved. And I ask you to do one thing, as I said before. Please focus on the facts. Read for yourselves. Don't listen to like one man on TikTok saying, oh, we should stop working now, we're a rich country and stuff like that. And believe that. You know, this TikTok culture and everything else and social media, you get a lot of info, but you have to process the information. And you get a lot of lies too, and a lot of racism coming through. And we must fight all of this aggressively if our country is to progress the way we want it to. So today, I just wanted this brief opportunity to talk to you. We'll be working at business development. As I said before, there are lots of other initiatives in the region, housing and job creating initiatives. You'll see us more often, the ministers. Minister Todd is here. He comes out here frequently, our foreign minister. Have you seen him? Stand up, Todd, because many of them may not know you. So when he comes, don't run him out of your area too. Welcome him, right? Our foreign minister, you know Minister Darren too, and many others. Edghill works up here. And so we'll be here more often, and I want to assure the people who raised matters with me the last time I was here, we have a note of these issues. We took down your numbers, we've been calling people, so we'll keep working through the issues. Now, outside of the job when you're registered for today, so you can start working, if there is any personal issue that you wish us to follow up on, that you're confronted, a lot of people have NIS problems and all sorts of things. I have my staff here. They can make the notes. All we need is your name and a number, and then you can call and explain to us. We'll call you and we'll explain what the nature of the problem is. Because we've set up a unit at the office of the president to follow up on these issues. But it's good to see all of you here today, and a lot of people, it's 1,000 people that will start working 2 days from now. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Vice President. So the Vice President will now be receiving any questions from you or any ideas that you have to share. So we will send this mic around.
Yeah.
You will just identify your name and...
Or you can put it back. You.
Stand up, stand up.
No, we will bring the mic around to you.
Yes, you don't have to move. Someone will bring the mic to you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Vice President.
Yeah, good afternoon.
I'm a super cleaner for 3 years, and
Okay.
my concern is we're not on the contract, nor permanent, and I just need to know what will be the next step for us.
All right. So give me, how many of you are in that position? How many of you are in the same position, a similar position? You alone? Well, what you should do, give us your name. Look at staff, just here, Steve. Your name and a number, and we'll call you, and then you can try to gather the others too, to see what we can do. All right?
Yeah, Vice President. My name is Rhonda Smart. I'm a staff nurse midwife attached to the RDC.
Yes.
I'm a contractual worker year to year. I resumed work after being on annual leave in January, and since then I have not been paid. I've made several queries and
Okay, all right. So give Steve again. This is what I meant. If you had personal problems, you can tell my staff and we'd follow up. I saw also the regional hospitals that people were sent off and the minister had to reverse it. and then Figueroa claimed that he did it. Figueroa couldn't even have a voice in AFNU government, much less reverse a decision now. So they take credit for all sorts of things. Yes, anyone else? And if it's personal, you don't have to raise your personal issues too. If you wish, you can raise them. But you don't have to, you can give my staff. Yeah, go ahead.
Alan Fraser, Government Vice President, with the war that's going on in Ukraine and Russia right now, shipping costs has gone up.
Yes.
I bought a van in the UK that had cost £1,500 to ship it, and that price has gone up £3,000. But that price has gone from £3,000 to £6,000. I would like to know and get if the government can do something when it comes to the duty that you have to pay, because actually the money that you have to pay, the duty $420,000, that's the money you have to put to pay the extra for the shipping. And secondly, with our wheat project, I would like to know if the government plan to do some land in Region 10, because I know that we have some nice land for wheat project in Region 10. Thank you very much.
Okay, so the two very important issues, I'll come to you in a minute. So they're very important issues because it allows me to, a lot of people raise this issue of cost of living. Because cost of living has gone up. Cost of living has gone up. And why is this so? So you know, although we are coming out of the COVID, we are now still suffering the consequences of the COVID. So globally, what has happened is that many of the places that were producing things that we consume, they were shut down. The factories in China stopped making the construction material, etc. So when there was a global shortage of many commodities, you know, once there's a shortage, the prices go up. So we import a lot of these things, but we can't find them. Let me give you an example. A week ago, the United States of America ran out of some baby food. And the President Biden had to authorize the military to fly into the United States of America from Europe, baby formula, because they have shortages in the US itself. So we have seen a steep increase in freight rates as well as prices because of what's happening with the COVID. Like China is still locked down. So they're not producing, the factories are shuttered. And then the war in Ukraine now has created more problems. It's to push up the price of fuel, oil. A barrel of oil in 2015, crude oil was $28 that we import. Now it's about $110 US per barrel. So you imagine what that does to cost. It's huge increase in the cost. The war in Ukraine has caused that. And then Ukraine and Russia, they produce 30% of the global supply of wheat to make flour. So once the war hit, they couldn't export anymore. And places that were exporting like India, they banned the exports. Like Malaysia, Indonesia, Malaysia, all these places banned the export of cooking oil. Cooking oil has skyrocketed, the price of cooking oil. So everybody now is securing their own food supply. And that is the problem, the period that we're going through. So what we did on the freight side, although the freight went up, we are now calculating the taxes on the basis of the old freight so that you don't pass on the increase to the consumer's good. That is what the government did to keep the prices constant. So your taxes now will not, because it's ad valorem, it will not skyrocket because of the increased freight. You know, it's CIF, cost insurance freight, which is the basis to levy the taxes on. So that's important. On the wheat, we started some trial for wheat to produce our own wheat here so we can be sufficient in our own food supply. Because globally, with climate change, you're going to have major supply problems. Some countries with money, like the Caribbean, wouldn't be able to feed themselves. If a ship can't come from Miami, can't sail from Miami because of bad weather, Many of the islands in the Caribbean will practically starve because they don't have a domestic food supply system. We, on the other hand, have that. That is why you see this big emphasis on agriculture and food security. So they're doing some trials of the wheat, 20 varieties. So definitely if it works well in this region, we probably can grow wheat just here. Yes, this young lady.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, I applied for nursing schools in 2016, got through with the interview and everything in 2020. Got back a letter saying that I passed the interview and everything and I just have to wait for myself.
When did you apply?
Since 2016, got through 2020, went to an interview, passed the interview and everything. All they're saying is that, oh, you have to wait on the starting date. Went to Georgetown, they called me to go to Georgetown. I said, fine, I will wait. And yet still nothing. So now it's me alone. Well, a lot of persons I know what to do the same thing. What strategies would you put in place for us?
All right, but let's follow up in your name. Give the guy your name and number, and we'll call you. So there are lots of people who were. Let me just give you an idea. Like when we got into office, there were about 800 people that were working, that were taken on for almost a year, not paid. And so we had to pay them, and then they were for the health system, but they were not trained, so then we had to terminate the contracts. And that is why APNU said we terminated people's contract. But those people were not paid. We ended up paying them for the full year under APNU that they were not paid. So that the nursing program now, with our growth in the physical infrastructure, I didn't want to get into too complex, but it's 7 new hospitals that will start before the end of the year, leaving out these. 6 first, second-tier hospital, first-tier hospital, maternal and children hospital. This maternal and children hospital alone would be the best in the world, one of the best in the world. It will cost us about $180 million. So any complicated case of mothers and children, women and children, they would be able to go there. So we need more people to staff. And that's why we're now mapping all the requirements. So it's doctors, nurses, nursing assistants. So I'm surprised they have not started the programs because we have to move swiftly to train the people to man these new facilities. But we'll check on your stuff, okay? Yeah, good afternoon.
I have a question concerning our community that we live in, right? At Linden today, each individual house lot, we paid money like processing to the land and what have you.
When did you pay?
We started since like 2015, the time was Miss Fisher, she was in charge, right? And then we went up, and then now I speak to when it said the other day, he said it was highlighted that our area is still squatting, right? Because that area we don't have no water inside, so that's my
okay. All right, let's look at what I can't tell you now. We'll examine it, but NISL took a lot of money from people too, right here in the region, and in Georgetown too. Like one guy paid $100 and something million. He has a lease without the land area demarcated under the lease. So it's practically nothing. So a lot of unusual things happen at Lands and Survey. So we need to follow up. Make sure they get your name and the issue. All right?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Yeah.
My name is Denise Etienne. I have an issue with CPC. In 2020, I applied for CPC. I received a call 2 months after, asking if I'm still interested in doing the course. I said yes. Another 2 months after, I received an email telling me I have to change my course because of my subjects. I changed my course, classes start. They sent me an email telling me that I have to do a TUP
It is the
What's a TUP? I don't know.
Which is the mathematical course.
Oh, okay. All right.
Even though I will get into CPC and they will return a call to me. To date, I'm still waiting on a call, and people that register with me and after me got into CPC.
And they did the TUP too, or they had the math?
Yes, they're doing TUP.
Oh, TUP. All right, let's follow up with this, you and the TUP, but we'll see if we can sort it out, all right? Right.
Okay, good afternoon. I am Miss Daniel from Free Friends Night, and I'm speaking on behalf of the road and the dike there. It's almost a year now since the water was washed down from both sides, and our dike was heavily damaged. And up to now, nothing can be done on the road there, nor the dike, and the water is almost running on the road again, where it seems we will be having a flood. So what I'm asking the authorities and the vice president to look into, because I'm fully aware the REO, the region and everybody is well aware of this situation. And I'm asking for you, Mr. Vice President, to please look in, because that is our main way of getting in and out of the community. We built a bridge there last year, and today it is rotten. So we need some assistance.
So I will look into it, but the region has to look. You see, the region has to take care of a lot of these smaller things whilst we're working on the big things like jobs and hospitals and highways and stuff. But often the politics kills us at many of these places. Kills us in many of the places because prefer to let people suffer than to fix a problem. Anyhow, we'll look into it. All right, so make sure that you come around and give the staff here, right? Here. Before, they're going to be here for a while, so even when you finish registering, you can, and sign up your contracts, you can still be here. Yes, please.
I'm the same parent of 4 boys, and I'm currently minding some chicken, and I'm finding it difficult because the feed price is very high.
Yeah.
Right now I have 400 chicken in my pen, and I don't have feed.
All right. Well, give me a name there. Let's see what you can do to that. No, that's practical. You know what I like about that is she's doing something to upgrade herself. But that's the sort of thing we should support. That's the sort of thing we should support. A mother who is trying to make a good life for her children. And an initiative. No, I agree. Don't worry, you're going to get some feed. Yeah, you're going to see.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah. Good afternoon.
One question. I would just want to know why is it only one person per house?
Because you're trying to spread it around. Eventually, the next round, you can have more than one per household. But we just wanted to spread the initiative a bit around, so at least in a house you can have some income. I think that's clear by itself, the reason why we want to do that. So we can spread it around a bit.
Easy.
I think I did. She could go on that program this afternoon. So she can get a grant of $250,000. Yeah. I hope not everybody has a chicken problem or a feed problem. No more feed problem here. Because everyone soon will be. Everyone here would be rearing chicken now. Anything else here?
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Leon Liverpool from Ichuni, and I'm a concerned resident. In Ichuni, we don't have an ambulance. For long since 2015, we've been begging for an ambulance.
Okay.
And we ain't got no ambulance, so I just asking as a parent.
All right, we try to look into that. What's going on, Dwight? What's going on in the region, Dwight? Have you made a request for it?
Yes, Mr. Vice President. We have put in for ambulance since last year. Okay. Thank you.
What, Dwight like it?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The ambulance was procured through last year's budget, but to date the supplier hasn't sent it as yet. Supposed to be eight ambulances supposed to come today, and I want it to reach 10 actually. It was last year's budget, and it has been approved, and it has been turned out.
But let me tell you something. You see the same issue that the comrade spoke about? The shipping. We have containers of equipment. Like you can't, if you order a vehicle now, it may take about 8 to 9 months to come. Because there are a global shortage of vehicles, because the factories were shut down because of COVID. So we have major problems. But the gentleman, you already said it's already bought, and so I'm looking forward to when it comes here. We'll take your number, name and number, so we can follow up with you. Take his name and number. You know, give them the name. No, let's go on, comrade. Why? Give the other guy. They talk to him. Give us your name and number.
Good afternoon, everyone. My concern is, since we have a passport office in Linden, I suggest that we have a police clearance office in Linden.
Oh, you can't get police clearance here? Then we will.
Go down to Georgetown, do the police clearance.
Where is the commander here? Hold on a minute. The commander here? Where is the commander? I don't know if this is for the whole country. I have to go to Georgetown or only here.
Police clearance office.
Also for the whole country?
Yeah.
Then we may have to change that because everybody may want this. Yeah. Let's find out a bit if it's for the whole country. Because if it's the whole country, I can't promise to fix it here quickly, because then we'll have to take a while to fix it, okay? So the decentralize.
Linden is a town of itself, so why we can't get here?
Well, Barbie says the same thing. That's a whole region, county, you know, and if they don't have it, so. Okay, we look into it. We look into it. Passport, right? Make sure you look at that. Write that down. Yes, so the other one. Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Vice President.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Chief. I have a situation. A few years ago, my home was burned down, and me and my 5 children are currently living by my mom.
No, just check the microphone. It could be done in the region. So they spoke with the commissioner, and he said it could be done in the region, the police clearance. Okay, so we're going to work at it to make sure. And I can't tell you want to know where now too. I just find out when it could be done, right? So right now she want to tell me, we're putting it in the RDC office, the chairman boardroom. Okay, yes, go ahead.
Yes. I'm currently living at my mom, and it is very uncomfortable for her. Anyhow, I already started my home. I'm at window height. So I'm kindly seeking some assistance.
All right, so make sure that Steve has your name. We'll talk later. All right? Now, let me tell you something else. I forgot to mention this initiative. So you know the government is building these homes, like the 1,000 homes will be building on the lands that are allocated. So if you check the newspapers, Sharon, tomorrow is going to be in the newspapers. Check the newspapers. The last time I came here, a number of people were saying to me, we have our own land already. but we can't afford to start with a bank. So on the way down, I called the president because he was Minister of Housing. He has a lot of expertise there. So I spoke with him, could we not put a government program together that would help people to build on land that they already have? So what happens, the government comes in, builds on your private land, and then the bank takes it over. So you don't have to advance any money, and then you pay the mortgage. And over time, you can pay off the mortgage so you have your home. Because if you wait for people to start, they don't have money to start. And many of them are already paying a rent somewhere else. So the same rent they can pay, they can do in the mortgage. So we will launch that program. It will be in the newspapers tomorrow. Sharwin, stand up, let them see. Sharwin can come back and explain this to everyone. We should come back and do a meeting just here, maybe in the region, to talk a bit more about that program, because that can help a lot of families. But we look into your stuff. Wednesday come back. All right. Okay, yes.
Vice President.
Yeah.
My father has been in the gold mine business for almost 10 years, and he's a small scale miner, so he's not getting out to work. Every time he tries to get the people out of your working, is that the warden is coming and stopping the work.
Yeah.
So if the warden is stopping the operation, what will be done for the small scale miners that aren't getting access to land?
Yeah, sure. This is a big problem we have that goes back a long time. A lot of the big miners often rent out their land, and then as soon as people find a bit of gold, then they throw them off. And so we have to find a way, because the way it works in GGMC now is on a first come, first served basis. So once you make your application, that's how it is. We have to find ways. When Robeson then, who is now Minister of Home Affairs, when he was the commissioner at GGMC, we had started a program for small people, to give them land. So we have to try to reintroduce something of that nature. I know there has been some work done, but I can't brief you fully because I don't have all the information here. I'm meeting the miners next Tuesday at the convention center to talk to them. So I guess that issue will come up by then. I'll be fully briefed. So let them know about it.
One more thing, Mr. Vice President. In 2020, me and my family would have lost our home. We would have reached out for help and assistance. So we actually had to go out to the office. They said they would have reached out to us, but no one ever reached out.
Where? Which office?
The President's office.
Okay, all right. Well then, let's put down your name and let's see. All right?
One more thing.
All right.
So my mom, actually at 19 years old, she's saying that since before I was given birth, she's trying to apply for a land, and it's been so many years she's
been trying to apply, or she applied?
She applied, sorry.
Okay, all right. Well, just get a copy of the application.
Get an application.
Copy of the application. All you need is a copy of the old application. Okay? And so they're taken. You go Wednesday and Sherwin will be here. He's the man in charge of all of this. So any problem, don't deal with him. Yeah. All right.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Erica Rankin, and I'm currently resided at, in a community. Its name is Lucky Spot, but that's way at the back of Razor. We do not have electricity, no water, no proper road. The road is a sand
How many
road.
persons? How many persons?
Like over 50 or more families are there, and they're having kids.
Todd, you should visit. Todd will make a note of it, and Todd will visit you. Okay?
Okay.
All right. Let's make a note, and then Todd, you'll visit. Okay? All right.
So once we have told, we have to form a CC group, and then through CC group, we'll be able to
All right, but when Todd comes, you will sort that out, bring everyone out, and let's see what we can do. We'll bring back a report.
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Orlando Town Funding Mine. I signed up last year for some farming land in mine. Then you know reply yet. And the same person who said,
Right.
how are you?
So, again, put your name down. You have a lot of people in that similar situation, but let's see what we can do. If you give them your name and number, while you take a seat back again, I keep asking people, I may not be able to take all because we want the registration to go. So that is why I'm saying, even if you don't get a chance to speak, give us your name and number, then we call you back and then you can explain about the issue, okay? So if you don't get to speak here today, make sure that you get your name and number, right? Yeah, please. Yeah.
Good afternoon. I wasn't here the last time and I gave some information pertaining to my NIS. Until yesterday I was trying to track some information.
Did anybody call you?
Yeah.
Oh, you got the call?
That's it. Just
No, but once they call you, now they have to follow up. They have to call you to verify. So once they call, they will submit a report now that they call you and they would now take it up with NIS. So it may take a while, right?
Another thing I want to ask. Why as soon as you reach over 55 you can't get a job? Because
eventually, yeah.
Sir, I mean, it's very nonsense. Because if you're strong and energetic and you can afford to work, why is it that you're not getting jobs? So I don't want those small houses, the core houses in a middle ward, and the veranda break off of the back step. Because I'm not working and I need a job, sir.
All right. So you were excluded from this program too, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, but
sir,
I don't want to make. Let me get your name there. I don't want to make an exception to the rule of the program, yes, but let me see what we can do, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. Make sure that you. But you had mentioned the last time NIS. You didn't mention these things. So yeah, right? All right. I'll take 5 more and then we'll continue with the registration because I want everyone to sign up today so that they can start working in a couple of days' time. And then I can always come back and people can raise these issues with me. Yeah.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vice President.
Yeah, good afternoon.
My name is Mr. Samuel from Roxton, Central Roxton. I went to school for some time. I made an application in 2008 for peace of land.
All right, but someone tell them your name there. That's it. That's all you have to do. Go and give your name. You don't need to get up and say you made an application. Right. Anyone who has any personal issue, I'm not taking any more personal issue. Please give them your name here and number. If there is a community issue, I'll take it now. Only community issues. Not you again. You got a chance. You got invited to the cherry already. You're going to give their name. Okay. Yes, the gentleman. All right, go ahead.
Good afternoon, everyone. My concern is that we should have a facility not just singing mothers, but mothers even though they are working. Because most of us can't afford a daycare, or some of us cannot leave our children.
I agree. But listen, if we could find a building in this region, we can take some of the people who are on this program and put them to man the daycare. And that would be then that's what they do. So Michael, let's look at that. If we could find a building, then we can put them in there and then they work there. So they do their 10 days in that program, that sort of thing for the kids. So that's how we have to be creative about deploying people. Okay.
Another question is that this time around for this year, when it was time for application to be sent in for nursing system, why Region 10 wasn't included? And when will it be included?
Okay, I don't know that. That's what I said to you earlier. I have to check. I'm not very familiar with what's happening there, so we'll check it out. Okay?
My issue, I live on first, I live going up to the area, and the rain, the water just comes out and wash away.
So Blueberry Hill, the water washes away the area. So we have to check Blueberry Hill. All right, Blueberry Hill, water issue there. Erosion. Okay.
My next issue, Mr. Vice President, I don't have much more contribution for my areas, and I want a job. Why y'all stop doing work that we should be doing?
But the weeding work,
CIP.
Oh, CIP. I don't know how many people are in that. Nigel, you know more about that. Who's on for something? All right. Let's examine it. If it makes sense that some of them might come on this program now. So instead, right here to come on this program now instead. All right. Yes, come.
Good afternoon,
West Watuka flooding now. All right, so West Watuka, the flood in West Watuka. Make a note of that, Nigel. Don't make a note of flood in West Watuka. All right. All right, thank you very much, Command, because I want you to finish all this first, right? Okay, take care. You can still write. Please give your name and number, right? And they will follow up on the issue. You'll get a call from the office to find out what the issue is. Thank you very much.
Hello.